Now,
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Doing good. Really big fan. Although, unlike Rick, I'm not a bass guitarist or a songwriter. I just really enjoy talent when I hear it, and you certainly have that. Tell me a little bit about the decision that went into bringing Mick Hucknall in as the lead vocalist.
Well, the Faces did a show before I was involved. It was like a PRS. It's like your kind of BASCA awards thing or something. In England, they got some Lifetime Achievement Award, and they didn't have a singer, and they had different singers. They did 3 songs, and Mick Hucknall was one of them. And now, Ian McLagan was asking me to come down. I said, well, who's singing? He said, one of the girls out, the Spice Girls, was going to sing a song, and Andy Fairweather and Mick Hucknall. I said, Mick Hucknall, and he said, just come down and check it out, because he wanted me to meet the other guys. It was Mac who was pushing for me to get in the band. And I was pretty impressed, actually. You know, he's got a great soul voice. So there you go. And I think the danger would have been is to try and get somebody to blindly try and copy Rod Stewart and fail miserably, and it looked like a cabaret band. And it don't with Mick. He's his own man, and he got a lot of stick for doing it. You know, when it was announced, and he still did it anyway because he loves the group. So I think that's kind of brave of him. And he's great. You might hear him sing Rod to Go Blind. Everybody would love Rod Stewart to do it, but he's not doing it for whatever reason. I'm not really party to that. Don't want to be party to that. It'd be great if he did it.
Are they? Yeah, I was going to ask you if they were playing any. If you guys are playing any Simply Red or songs.
No, it's just purely Faces. We don't even do any Rod Stewart songs. Well, we do Faces songs that were written by Rod Stewart, obviously, but it's just all stuff from Faces albums. So that's kind of cool, you know.
Definitely.
Now, I have another question for you. You switch up, from a lot of different styles of music over the span of your career. Now, in your head, do you have to, as you go on stage to perform this different type of music, do you sort of have to say, okay, I'm not playing like I was in this band, I'm going this style, and just sort of keep focused?
No, I dispute that. I always play like I play like. And it's just kind of coincidence that every band I play in, the bass playing is kind of sort of quite similar, really. You know, I've never been in a jazz funk band. I wouldn't do that. But all the people I've been involved with is because they dig my style of bass playing. And yeah, I don't think I've ever played any different kinds of music, to be honest.
Well, who were I know you're into R&B and listening to stuff that was big in the U.S., rhythm and blues.
Yeah, like proper R&B, yeah. Rhythm and blues.
Did you know any of the bass players at the time that were big influences?
Tamla Motown was really big in England in the 60s. There was in fact, I had a live sort of show a few nights back over the weekend. There's this thing on called Meltdown that Ray Davis has kind of curated, and he recreated this TV show we had called Ready, Steady, Go, and it was one of the best pop shows I've ever seen. And on it, you used to get all the Tamla Motown artists. And that kind of style of bass playing is really quite, sort of deep within my DNA now. And then I dug people like McCartney as a bass player. I don't know if I quite like the Frog song or Olive Kintyre, but, his bass playing is cool. John Entwistle, Ronnie Lane, kind of that's about it, really. And then a bit later on I got into, there's a guy called Holger Cusico who's in a band called Can. I like the bass player who's in a Plastic Ono band, Klaus Woolman, who hasn't really done a lot apart from play with John Lennon a few times.
Oh, yeah.
And he's cool.
Did we just get a Plastic Ono band reference in here?
You did. That first Plastic Ono band album is great. I think it's still one of the most modern sounding records ever. And the bass playing is fantastic. And it just sounds like he's jamming along, but it works. You should check it out. The bass is great on it.
Is it true that you may not
like... It's gone all quiet. You don't believe me.
No, that's true. But is it true that, because you were just talking about influences and whatnot. So in the Pistols, did they say, he likes, the Beatles, that's one of the reasons why it's not working out right now?
No, that was a bullshit story that was put out by Malcolm McLaren to make him look like he was more in charge than he was. The common ground between me, Steve and Paul was always the Faces. That was we didn't want to sound like the Faces, but that was our starting point. John hated them, but immediately there was a good frisson there, there was a good bit of friction.
That's great friction to build off of. Wow. I mean, all that ties it all together. You know, either a thesis or one guy likes him, the other guys don't like him or whatever. Wow. Yeah. That's cool. So,
you know, I think what came afterwards, you know, as soon as we appeared, there was lots of punk bands reformed, and you can imagine them in their local youth club putting up a sign, we're a punk band, we're punks, we're looking for a punk to join our punk band, please come and join our punk band, oh, by the way, you must be a punk. You know, it was very kind of narrow. But the Pistols, we had a whole set of influences. There's a whole lot, in that album, there's a whole lot of stuff that's in there that's been brought from somewhere else. Now, you wouldn't necessarily know it, but there's a depth and a breadth to it that I think is very
the
important.
underpinnings of the songwriting is really good. It's classic musical structure, and it's a really good classic songwriting. People still listen to those tunes like they're fresh. How does that make you feel? Kids today are still digging the sex.
Well, I think it's cool, and I think a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of it was to do with me, and I think I gave John a vehicle to hang his kind of, you know, really hard-hitting, angst-ridden, clever lyrics on. You know, I mean, John's best mate at the time always said, well, if John had his way, it would have been unlistenable. So, there you go.
Wow. How does it feel to have a song on Guitar Hero?
My kids like it.
Be pretty vacant.
It's a buzz. What's wrong with that? You know, it's fine. That's fine.
Pretty vacant on Guitar Hero. That must be a nice rush.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, I think, you know, they kind of want to loop a little riff around, and that riff at the beginning is just prime for being looped around. I mean, the one it should be is a I've never seen it as a, you know, your telephone rings. What do you call it? A ringtone.
Right.
Yeah, and in fact, I used to have a phone because I couldn't get it as a ringtone. I actually programmed it, and you could write something in, and it went off. And I was with Alan McGee, you know, the guy who used to run Creation. He went, he's Scots bloke. Went, that's pretty vacant. That's fantastic. And it was, yeah. But it was actually in the wrong key because you couldn't get an octave in A. You had to be an E or something. But I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges I find these days, music, you know, on crappy speakers for computers and phones, we're in charge of the bottom end of the spectrum. You know, how do you get the bass signal to carry through? You know.
Well, that's it. You know, how do you do that? I mean, lots of times there's something. When you're driving in the car, there's no bass on it. You know, and if you're making a record, you want to check it in the car, and you're driving, and you think, the bass ain't loud enough. And then you lift it up a bit, and then it is too loud. It's a fine thing. But it's kind of weird, you know, on an old transistor radio, but going back to the Tamla stuff, you used to really hear those bass lines coming through, and that's what I dig. You know, and if you're in a club and everybody's talking, you can't necessarily hear all the tinny stuff, but I always picked up on the bass. That's what kind of grooved me.
Right. It's great. Yeah. So, what was your first bass? Do you remember?
Well, I had a bass, it looked like a Fender Mustang, but it wasn't even that. It was purple and it had a stripe on it, but I think it was a guitar that somebody take the 6 strings off of and put 4 on. And then I remember going to see the Pistols, but before it was the Sex Pistols, and they said, right, you got the gig, but, you know, have you ever seen that movie, Crocodile Dundee?
Oh, yeah.
You know, when he gets mugged in New York, and they pull a knife on him, and he goes, that's not a knife, and he pulls out his big sort of Bowie knife, and he goes, that's a knife. Well, that's what happened with the guitar. They said, well, that's not a bass guitar, and they'd reached under the bed, and they got this guitar from somewhere. Don't ask why, and it was a Fender Precision, and I ended up using that. So that was kind of cool. But I've had a few different basses over the years. Rickenbacker was kind of all right, but it's a bit too fiddly to play. I got 3 Precisions, and somebody's just laid this bass on me, which looks like Ronnie Lane's Zematis, but it isn't. It's a GTZ or something like that it's called. So I might use that with the faces. And what else have I had? I had a really nice Les Paul Jr. shaped Gibson bass. Is it EB3 with a banjo tuning pegs on the back?
Right.
It didn't sound great, but it fitted in the back of my Sunbeam Alpine sports car. That was the reason I got that one. And then I had a Dan Armstrong, one of those slider pickup ones, which is kind of cool. But I've always been a precision man, really. And in fact, now I've got a really nice old 61 Precision, but I don't like taking it out because it's worth a lot of money. I've got a 62 reissue, which sounds great for recording, but is a bit kind of heavy. Yeah. And I've got this Mexican Precision, which sounds fine, you know, as long as you know how to twiddle the knobs on your bass amp, and you can make it sound as good as the other one. It's kind of nice and light, and you can sling it around. It's always in tune when you take it out of the case. What more do you want? And it's black. Oh, and I put a tortoiseshell pickguard on it, so I customised it.
Oh, cool.
Oh, and it's also customised on the bottom because my mate was helping me with it, and it was in a zip bag, and he didn't realise you had to put the zip all the way round. So when I picked it up, and I had something else on the other end, I could feel it going, but could the fuck I stop it, and it just slid out and bashed all on the bottom, so all the lacquer's kind of crazed, but that's all right, you know. Didn't do it deliberately.
Sure. So you're
at least I know which one's my one now. It's the one with the bashed up bottom bit.
Yeah, that's right. They're going for quite a pretty penny too. The older ones.
Yeah. That's why you don't want to have somebody nick it.
That's right. So, have you toyed around with 5 strings at all? Are you into that scene at all?
That's a bit too complicated for me now, really.
And,
yeah, it would be handy sometimes, you know, if you want to pitch it down a little bit. But then, you know, if basically you have a B on the bottom, don't you? But it just makes you think, you know, because it's a little bit harder sometimes to not, you know, if you want to change the key of a song, you can put a different slant on it. So,
right.
Yeah, I think a bottom E is low enough.
Are you using any effect?
Nope.
Straight in.
A tuner is quite good effect. I always use my fingers, I never use a pick. You get that nice warm sound on it. I think proper bass players use their fingers and not a plectrum.
Aha,
but
yeah.
then the ones who use a plectrum would say that you've got to use a plectrum. I don't know, you know, bass playing ain't rocket science. But everything, all the bass I play is always kind of like a vehicle to get the song across. I think that's the important thing.
So when you're starting off to write a song, you feel most comfortable holding the bass in your hands and kind of coming up with the groove?
Well, no, I tend to write on a guitar. Well, in fact, I tend to write a song when I'm walking down the street and you see something and you get a lyrical idea and a tune comes into your head. And I think unless you've got a good idea in the first place, I always then go to the guitar and start working out my idea. Rarely does it come from jamming.
Huh.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think most of my songs have come that way. The only thing is you end up with lots of walking paste songs.
Right. Do you imagine the drums next? I mean, linking up with the drummer, or not so much? More of the lyrics?
I think the lyrics are pretty important. I mean, it's a song, you know, and you're supposed to be singing about something. Right. I mean, it don't have to be earth-shatteringly important, but it's just got to be clear and well-defined. Yeah. But, you know, I've never been a great jammer. I mean, I think some people are. It's just whatever rocks your boat, really. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just it don't necessarily work for me. You know, but then sometimes you can bring half an idea in and then you just throw it in with the guys you're playing with and it sort of takes on a life of itself and goes somewhere else. That's cool, too, you know. I think
so are you writing
the result is a...
Right.
Sorry?
Oh, you're writing also from, you play guitar obviously now with the Philistines and...
Yeah, well, I mean, on the album, I do both. I went in and laid down the rhythm tracks on rhythm guitar with me and the drummer, and then I overdubbed all the bass parts. But live, I like playing bass when somebody else is singing. When I'm singing, I prefer to play rhythm guitar because you can put on more of a show that way, really, I think, you know. And also, I wouldn't say I was the best lead guitarist in the world. In fact, I would say I was one of the worst. But I'm not a bad rhythm player, and it gives the other guy, James, more room to kind of manoeuvre, really. I think the danger is if you've got two good guitarists in a band, they kind of, I don't know, they try and cancel each other out sometimes. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. But really looking forward to playing bass with the Faces. That's cool.
Yeah, that's tremendous. That's huge. So is Kenny Jones playing drums?
Kenny Jones is playing drums, Ian McLagan on keyboards, Ron Wood on guitar, Ron Wood's son, Jesse's going to be playing second guitar, she's doing a few block calls here and there, and Hucknall on vocals. It sounds good,